What is up, everyone? JD here. Hope you're doing well today. I'm really excited to bring you my full review of the Winterblade Factor. Been waiting for this one because I pre-ordered nearly a year ago. So I'm really excited to finally experience this magical magnetic little EDC. Let's go ahead and jump into today's review. We're going to be going through knife specs. We'll do a couple size comparisons. Those size comparisons are to help you frame of reference the size of this knife, and then we'll go ahead and jump into thoughts and impressions. So the Factor has a 3-inch M390 blade, 4.25-inch handles. You can see this one is titanium and carbon fiber. Overall length 7.25 inches, and claimed weight is 3.2 ounces. We're going to grab the scale real quick and check that weight. All right, so claimed weight 3.2. It's actually coming in more like 3.4. We're going to double check it just to make sure. Yep, 3.4, so about 2 ounces off. Not really sure what I would attribute to that, but it is what it is. I just wanted to do that one time for y'all to hear that sound. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. We're going to bring out the Demco AD 20.5, which is going to be pretty close in size, a little bit more blade length and a little bit more handle length going from the pivot out. And then we'll go ahead and bring out the Spyderco Shaman and do the same thing. You can see this is a smaller EDC, and this is definitely meant for EDC. I don't think it's going to be hard use, but we'll jump into that in just a second. Let me go ahead and move these two out of the way and bring out a couple more frame of reference knives, the Benchmade Bug Out. And we'll bring out the SIG K320 made by Hogue. As you can see here, hopefully this is helping you frame of reference that this is a smaller EDC knife. The Bug Out is even bigger than the Winterblade Factor as far as length. Let's move these two out of the way, and we'll bring out a couple of budget knife comparisons for you guys. We'll bring out the Vosteed Raccoon. I think that's a fairly recognizable knife at this particular point in time. And then we'll go ahead and bring out the Civivi Conspirator. This will be the larger frame of reference. So you can see this is definitely smaller than even the Raccoon. And being that it is a smaller EDC, for our thickness profile comparisons, we'll go ahead and bring out the smaller knives that we just ran through, because this is actually very thin. So you can see here as I use my thumb to make sure that the scales are flush on bottom. On the top you can see the Vosteed just a little bit thicker. Let's go ahead and bring out the Bug Out with the Flytanium scales. A little bit more of a challenge to do, and again I am trying to keep the thumb back off of there so that you can really see these are about the same thickness. And the last thin knife that I brought out is going to be the AD 20.5, and you can see with the flat scales there's a little tiny bit of contouring going here, but with the flat scales the Demco is just a little bit thinner. All right, let's go ahead and jump into my thoughts and impressions. Love that sound. Ergos. Very neutral handle, very comfortable. About the only thing that I noticed here for me with larger hands is that my hand kind of sinks really far into this piece here, which we'll dive into just a little bit here and a little bit here. Now it looks really well made too while we're on the Ergos. The carbon fiber weave is really well done. I like the little design on the pivot here, and the titanium is no nonsense. Really functional. It goes in and out of the pocket really nice. You have no spot for a lanyard. It is reversible, as you can see here. You just would flip it and bring it over to the other side. Really comfortable chamfering all around on this knife. It's so well done. You do have a little bit of milling, which I'm realizing just now my lighting is not picking up too well. I apologize for the background noise, but it is cold in the garage, so the heat pump is pumping the heat into the house. Let's see here. I thought it was a little bit of chamfering, but it's actually a completely flat scale. That hole for the cutout here is what I think caught my eye, and I thought that was a little bit of a cutout. We'll dive into the mechanics of this knife here in a minute, because I think that's what everybody's going to be most interested in. Actuating the lock is very intuitive. Now, one thing that I noticed while actuating this lock is that if you hold it down while it drops, it will lock the magnet in place, but the lock doesn't go back into place. You see how it slides up? I'm not quite sure what's causing that. if that is something that'll be addressed in future iterations. But if you pull it and then let it go, it'll fall Oh, that's the first time it hasn't dropped shut. And then it'll pop back into place, and as you see when I pull it out here, it doesn't move now. The deployment method for this backspacer is a little bit confusing. Now, when you try to just push it, there's not enough detent to get it to shoot out. Now, it could be that the knife is still breaking in. I've only had it about a week. I've carried it maybe 3 or 4 times, but I have fidgeted with it a ton when I've carried it those times. So I'm not quite sure what's going on here, but to get this, I have found for me going all the way to the tip and then like launching it gets it to fly out no problem. I noticed even if I go on the bottom, because of that slide, I can't quite get the momentum that I can hitting it from the top and sending it out. The other thing that I've noticed too is I'm not quite sure, well, not that I noticed, but I'm not quite sure what purpose this serves, because what I was thinking about, what would it look like if it was just one solid piece and it only had the thumb holes for deployment? Is this mechanism doing something with the knife? If you look here, you have your stop pin at the bottom of this spacer here, and it's hitting right there. You can see where it's worn in just a little bit. There you go. Trying to hit the lighting to where you can see now that it's reflecting. That's where that stop pin is hitting when it closes. You see right there. So that's pushing it forward completely, locking it up, and it feels very solid. Now what holds this in place is the magnet that you see there in the background. You see that the light's hitting it behind that button. That's what's locking it in place and keeping it from sliding back, which is fine, because I feel like when you're pushing, you're actually pushing up against this. So this stop pin keeps the blade from going up. This stop pin comes in and stops it from closing down. So it should be really secure when you're using the knife to push through materials going out on the tip, the draw cuts. It has a great blade shape. The M390 from Bestech seems to be really well treated. Even though it does have large branding on the knife, it's so tucked in here and it's a faint gray color that it really doesn't stand out too terrible. You can see the hand. I don't know if that's a belt satin finish. I think it is a belt satin finish, and it looks really good. And again, just a great utility shape. This again to me is an EDC size knife, lightweight, meant for opening packages, cutting strings and things of that nature. You can do some labels and draw cuts, getting to boxes again, breaking down some cardboard is going to be okay. I don't really feel like this is meant to be hard use, and I think over time, as we see these in the market and in production, in circulation more, we will actually know just how strong the magnets are. Now the sounds on this thing, that's when you have your finger here. You don't get as much of a ting. When you bring it down low, you get that nice ting. And you can also get it with the button. Oops. As I fail it. And the lighter you hold it, the longer the ting lasts. Alright, so that's enough with the sounds. The opening hole works really well. As I mentioned, I think aesthetically it would look really good with just a flat scale, regardless what side it was on. So I don't know what the backspacer is really doing. As far as actuating it, I think also, and I want to be really careful here, it doesn't look like it's holding the blade in place. It obviously is preventing you from reaching that. And I'm very careful when I do this. I'm actually holding the knife itself primarily with the fingers down low. I really am not sure what this piece here is doing outside of being a second means of deployment. I'd love to see a version 3 of this where it's just solid, or maybe a little bit of a design, and just having the blade be a thumb hole only opening if this piece is not doing anything. I sort of understand what's going on in here, and again, I'll talk a little bit about that. You have this piece here which centers the blade. I'm not quite sure what that's made out of, but that gray nub that sticks out. Can I lower this a little bit? There we go. That gray nub is what keeps it centered, and then that magnet there is what's kind of holding it in place. So when we go to close it, you can see now The little gray piece here is what's making contact with the blade, but the magnet down there is actually not doing anything but holding it in place. Now, there is another magnet in here, but it's in between the backspacer, as I showed earlier. So I don't think that is doing anything as far as keeping the blade in place. And then on the other side, there is the magnet that I mentioned holds this slide piece in place, but it's actually under the slide piece that locks the blade from falling closed, and then it's the stop pin back here that keeps the knife from, see here? You can still see down in there, but you see the contact point there on the stop pin. It's really hard to see in the shadow. That's what's keeping it from going back into the knife. So almost like a traditional stop pin that is built in with those two fasteners there that go in between the scales. So hopefully that's helped a little bit with the understanding of this, but this is a really cool knife. Now, the choke point on this knife with all this magnetic magic that is going on this knife is going to be the price point. For this Chinese-made knife that has a titanium scale, carbon fiber scale, titanium pocket clip, and M390 blade steel is going to run you $375. For $375, there's a lot out there that you can get for less than that. So I know it's hard to catch them, but you can find the Nimbles on pre-order. They do pretty regular production runs throughout the year. You can get those for around $335, and you're getting M390 titanium frame lock, but you're not getting the magnetic magic that's happening with Winterco blade factor. Another knife that you can take into consideration is going to be a Vero Engineering. They are a little bit harder to get a hold of, but I have noticed that recently they are dropping a little bit more regularly. And again, M390 titanium frame lock for around $335 versus the $375. So I did want to point out a couple of other options if you're looking in that $300 price point. Now, for around $300, you can spend around $200 to get a Shaman, and then you can spend the remainder of the difference in getting yourself a set of RGT titanium scales, and you would have a USA made titanium handled knife that would actually still come in a little bit less than that, or around the same price. So that is something to take into consideration. You could also do the same thing with a Demco 80-20.5 made in Taiwan and throw yourself, well, it actually comes with titanium for around $260 or $280. Somewhere in there. So, or you can pick up one and get yourself a set of titanium original goat scales, and you're going to have a harder use mentality knife. So this is a little bit more robust geometry. It's going to slice, but it's going to be a little bit more tougher for heavy duty tasks, and it's going to have a harder heavy duty use lock that I wanted to mention. But overall, I'm satisfied with the Factor. I think it's been a great experience. But I do love the build, and the technology is very fascinating, and I think I would wait to see what future iterations they come out with that might have more of a traditional blade shape. I know that they already have some out there currently that is in the works, and I'm very excited to see what the reviews are going to be like, and I'm excited to see what this knife is going to be like in the long term and how it holds up. If you enjoyed today's video, do me a favor, leave a like. Consider subscribing if you're not already subscribed. I love to bring the content to you. Don't forget to set that notification bell to all so you don't miss any alerts. Thanks to everyone out there that is subscribed, regularly leaving the likes and the comments. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope you have a fantastic week. Until next time, peace.